What up, boys and girls? Out in the shop, messing with the blood stain. We took this out the other day, tried to do some testing with it up US 36, and did pretty good. I was trying to dial in a 580 tune-up for some bracket racing that we're gonna do, or some index racing we're gonna do here locally at the new Flying H drag strip this year. One thing I noticed in the data logs and stuff, we're getting a little bit of coolant pressure. I've kind of been fighting this issue with this car for a while now. I think it's actually had this problem forever. And I don't know if it's just related to the engine or what, but every time I put a radiator in it, it's like the radiator wants to explode. It actually looks like it's gotten worse after the last track outing. So yeah, it actually has. So yeah, we've got some coolant pressure issues. And as you can see here, we got our coolant pressure sensor there in the water pump. And one thing I noticed in the data log, a lot of the coolant pressure data, there's a lot of noise. The line on the graph was very choppy. Wasn't a nice, smooth, linear line. I think some of that's related to the fact that it's hard mounted to the water pump. So we ran over to my buddy Josh over at Finishing Lines and whipped up a hose here, and we're going to remote mount a sensor. And these are all things he can do. These are plumbing options you can get from him. But I just went over there and I said, hey, I need a 1-foot-long 4AN hose. And I had this 1/8 inch to 4AN 90. And he was actually out of this adapter here to be able to remote mount a sensor. But it's a 4AN to female 1/8 inch MPT. Now I can put my sensor in the end of this, and we can move the sensor off the water pump directly and mount it off the side of the intake, or zip tie it on a hose or something, mainly to try and see if we can get the noise of the sensor, the data from the sensor, to be a little bit nicer. So I'm going to mount this. We're going to thread that down in here, and then we'll put the sensor in here, and we may end up mounting it up here off the elbow here. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and start yanking this thing apart, and I think we're just gonna put head gaskets on it. I really don't want to, but you know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So yeah, what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go ahead and just rip the heads off this thing. I do have a new intake manifold for this. Now would be the time to change it. It's one of these Chinese intakes. It's basically like an Edelbrock knockoff, which I need to modify it. I'm going to do some porting and stuff on it, because with this intake here, I've got spacers on it, and I don't like running the spacers, honestly. So I think I'm going to change that up. I'm going to go to this other intake, but like I said, I'm going to do some porting on it. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get the top end of this motor ripped apart. I've got some small bore BTR 7-layer head gaskets we're going to throw on this, because I think I've just got some crappy ones on it currently. So we'll get these heads ripped off, get the gaskets swapped out, and hopefully get this thing back together so we can go testing next week sometime. So we got the intake off, got it sitting over there, and I do like that Holley split intake. And I got my cathedral port, or rectangle port to cathedral port adapters. There was a bunch of residual fuel. You can kind of see it there on the flange. I wiped it off already. But a lot of residual fuel inside this. I mean, you can even see it puddling up there too. So, and then inside the ports here. But flies, I don't know where all these flies came from. I'm gonna get all this leaves and dirt and stuff cleaned up off here before I start yanking the heads off of it. I gotta drain the water out of it. We'll get the headers off. I gotta undo the couple ground straps, and then the diaper straps. We gotta undo those. I don't wanna get any water inside this thing, so I'm gonna go up inside the block once I get all the exhaust manifolds and stuff off. And then I'm gonna pull a couple of the water plugs out of the block to drain it. That way when I pull the heads off, nothing gets inside of the oil, especially since I just changed the oil. I'd like to try and run it one more time. Yeah, I gotta pull this alternator assembly and stuff off too. And then we'll get the heads yanked off of it. And hopefully the inside of the chambers and everything looks good. We'll get them washed up, cleaned up, carb cleaned up, surfaced, AKA Scotch-Brite and brake clean. And then we'll do the same with the deck on the heads, or on the deck of the block. Well, we got the driver's side head off, and it all looks pretty good. Didn't see any spots where I felt like it was pushing water through the cooling system. I'm gonna be really mad if I pull this apart and there's no visible signs of water getting pushed on it. That'll definitely drive me insane. But, you know, it is what it is. The exhaust valve's got some rust on them. See that one there? Kind of rusty. Huh. Yeah, so I'll probably just brake clean these off and then go through and razor blade the deck surface, clean all that stuff up. Get it wiped clean. I'll probably Scotch-Brite it, just touch it up with some Scotch-Brite. And same thing out here too. I'll probably just go around and just razor blade the deck surface off. I doubt I'll Scotch-Brite this because I don't want any Scotch-Brite inside the motor. But I'll probably just razor blade all this off, wipe it off with brake clean, and then we'll slap some BTR 7 layers on it. I got to get another one of the water plugs out because it's still got a little bit of water on this side, like where it wasn't below. So it's basically in the water pump. But the block is empty on this side, but I need to empty the other side. So I need to get the starter off that side so I can get to the other plug, which would be this one here, this little bitty one here on the starter pad side. That one we'll pull out to empty the water out of the passenger side bank of the block. And probably go ahead and get this header off, get the dipstick tube out. And that way I can get down there, unbolt the starter from the top. I don't want to crawl underneath of it because the floor is wet from water. And we'll get this other side ripped off real quick. We got the passenger side head off, and I believe we found our culprit. I looked at the bottom of the head, and you can see right here, see these little dark spots, like weird discoloration right here, where you don't see it here, but you see it here. You see it here, and you don't see it here. So yeah, these little weird discolored spots right here was where it was pushing boost into the cooling system on these 2 holes. And it was just on the head side of the gasket. This is the deck side here. You can't see anything, but if you flip it over, you can kind of see there's a little bit of discoloration right here. And then right here, see that spot right there? It's where it was pushing water or pushing compression into the cooling system. These sides don't have that, but this one here does. Let's see if I can point it right here. This little spot right here. And you can really see it if you look at the head. Right there where that like cloudiness is, that's where it was pushing compression through into the cooling system. So at least we found it. The driver's side didn't have anything, and I was a little leery once I got it off and looked at it. This was the deck side. That all looks good. See how that, like, you can see the imprint of the water ports, head side and deck side, but you couldn't on the other head because that other head gasket was leaking. So we'll get the decks cleaned up and all that and get it prepped and ready for some new head gaskets. Get this water out of here. And yeah, we should be got a little pitting up here. Must have had some water in it. A little bit back there too. All right, so we got her all buttoned back up. Got the Jegs fuel rails modified to go with the China knockoff Edelbrock intake. Got my elbow and everything both on. Everything's buttoned back up. And obviously we had the car running already. But one thing this car always did was when you would cold start it, it would you'd have to crank it a lot. And you'd probably have to crank it a bunch, shut it off, cycle it again, and then so you pretty much had to turn it on and off twice and cycle it a bunch to get it to start cold. So let's see what it starts up now with this new intake. Because one thing I noticed, I pulled the SD card out of it after I had it running, and it wanted 2% more fuel just at idle, which was abnormal. It shouldn't have wanted that much. So I assume there was probably a flow issue with that old intake. So it's obviously it's making more power. It wants more fuel down low. So let's see how it starts now with this new intake cold. That's fresh cold startup. It would never start that easy, ever.